She set fire to the clothes my husband loved, and when I got home, she still had the nerve to say she'd done me a favor. I will never forget that sentence. Never. The smell hit me before I even opened the door, that heavy stench of burned fabric mixed with Lucia's sweet perfume. Her scent had always bothered me, but that day it cut into my chest like a knife. My hands started shaking the moment I touched my grandmother's green necklace, as if I could scrape some courage out of the cold metal that I no longer had inside me. When I walked into the kitchen, she was there, sitting, legs crossed, holding my favorite mug, and smiling. "It was an accident, Marta. Those clothes were begging to go," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I felt something inside me crack slowly, quietly. I walked down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. The floor still had dark marks, as if the fire had left footprints behind. When I pushed the bedroom door open, I saw everything. My wedding dress. The blouse my husband said smelled like home. The skirt I wore on my 50th birthday. All of it in ashes, cold ashes, that somehow hurt more than hot ones. I took a deep breath, and the phrase I'd heard my whole life echoed inside me. Nothing can erase who you are. But that day, she tried. If this story already hit you right at the start, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Before the flames took my clothes, my bedroom was where I found myself. It wasn't big or modern, but it had a way of wrapping around me when the day got too heavy. Morning light slipped through the beige curtains, falling softly over the old floor my husband sanded with his own hands. It was the part of the house where I could still feel him. Quiet, steady, present. I woke up early every day. I made coffee slowly, as if each movement were a silent conversation with the past. Then I'd run my hand along my closet and choose something with a story. The blue shirt he always complimented, the floral skirt I bought when I decided I wasn't going to hide anymore after 50, the heavy coat from our last trip together. Every piece was a chapter of the life I had built with dignity. I picked up my green necklace, touched the stone, and whispered, "One more day, Marta." My grandmother wore that necklace whenever she needed strength, and now it was my turn to need it. But in the last few months, Lucia started slipping into small corners of my routine. First with help disguised as kindness, then with opinions that sounded more like orders. "You should donate those clothes," she'd say. Or, "A woman your age doesn't need to keep so much old stuff." I pretended not to hear, but each comment was like a crack in the walls of my home. She began showing up unannounced, going through drawers, rearranging things as if she were preparing the ground to replace something, or someone. I tried to smile, tried to keep the peace, but there was always that feeling that she watched too much, judged too much, invaded too much. And now, staring at the wrecked bedroom, I understand that her getting closer wasn't care. It was advance. It was territory being taken, inch by inch. I just didn't know it would all end in flames. I've been through difficult moments in my life. Widowhood, the silence of an empty house, the feeling that the world keeps moving even when your world has ended. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day I saw the ashes of my own history scattered across my bedroom floor. When I got back from my medical trip, I expected to walk in and smell coffee, old wood, the calm that had always held me. But what I found was heavy air, thick with smoke. The kitchen door was half open, and the floor had small black marks, like charcoal footprints had run across it. The first thing I did was touch my grandmother's green necklace. Every time fear tightened my chest, that's what I did. It was a small gesture, but it always steadied my heart. That day, though, not even the necklace could stop my hands from trembling. Lucia was sitting at the table as if she were a VIP guest in my home. The mix of her perfume with the smell of fire nearly knocked me down. She crossed her legs, stirred her coffee, and released the sentence that still echoes inside me. "It was an accident, Marta. Those clothes were asking to go." That hurt more than any flame ever could. I didn't respond. I walked past her, my body heavy, my legs begging me not to keep going. When I reached the hallway, I noticed smoke had seeped out from under the door like a warning. I pushed it open slowly. The creak sounded like a lament. The room was destroyed. the closet open, burned from the inside. Gray bits of fabric scattered everywhere. What was left of my wedding dress looked like stardust, pretty at a glance, painful in truth. I knelt without realizing it, touched the ashes with my fingertips. Cold. So cold they seemed to freeze my chest. Memories rushed in. My husband's smile when he first saw me in that dress, the night he called me light, the way he held my hand when the doctor gave his final diagnosis. And all of that, now, turned to dust. Behind me, I heard Lucia breathing, soft, controlled, as if she were admiring a piece of art she herself had created. "You'll be fine," she said, emotionless. "Maybe this will help you move on. Sometimes the past has to be burned to make room for the new." My throat closed, not from anger, from pain. Because what she burned wasn't the past. It was the part of me I was still trying to protect. I breathed deeply, touched the necklace again, and felt a truth form inside my chest. If someone lit that fire, it wasn't fate. It wasn't an accident. It was someone who wanted to erase me. But in that moment, something inside me decided I would not be erased. After taking a deep breath and letting the tears dry before they even fell, I stood up slowly, like someone gathering their own pieces. The room was silent, but not an empty silence. It was a heavy one, filled with questions I still didn't have the courage to ask. I ran my hand over the charred wood and felt the rough texture cling to my fingertips. It was like touching an open wound. I closed my eyes for a moment, held my grandmother's green necklace between my fingers, and remembered her words. "When something doesn't make sense, Marta, observe." So I observed. The fire hadn't taken the whole house, only the center of my closet. The burn pattern was focused, almost deliberate. The rug had been pushed aside, leaving a strip of floor covered in soot. It didn't look careless. It looked executed. The window was open, but with no smoke marks, a sign it had only been opened after the fire. And the base of a candle, untouched, sat on the floor like a silent mockery of the story Lucia tried to sell. She claimed she had tried to help, but there was no water, no wet cloth, no desperation, only calm. Too much calm. I walked to the kitchen. Lucia was still there, stirring her coffee as if she were stirring my insides. When she saw me, she gave a small smile, but her eyes didn't. "Want me to help you clean up?" she asked, tilting her head. It was like she was saying, "I did it, and now I want to see how much you can take." "No need," I answered softly. "I'll handle it." She rose from the chair with rehearsed elegance. "Marta, you've been so nervous. I think that trip wore you out. Age, you know, these things." Each word hit a raw nerve, not just about my clothes, about me, about my worth, about the fact that I was alone. Then something caught my attention abruptly, a quick, guilty glance. Pedro, her son, was standing at the hallway entrance. His shoulders tense, hands covered in soot, expression screaming without a sound. He saw me, and froze. I opened my mouth to speak to him, but he stepped back. Lucia noticed and gripped his shoulder too tightly for it to be affection. "Go to the car, Pedro," she said. Her voice was too firm for someone pretending to be calm. He obeyed. But before leaving, he looked at me again. It was brief, but full of something that chilled me, a truth stuck in his throat. When Lucia followed him, she bumped the table and knocked over the mug. The porcelain shattered into 3 pieces. A common accident. But in that moment, everything felt like a clue. I bent down to pick up the pieces. She didn't help. She just watched. And that's when I understood. The fire wasn't a mistake. It was a message. And Pedro? Pedro knew something he wasn't allowed to say. I held my necklace again, feeling the metal warm under my skin. My grandmother used to say, "Silence reveals what the mouth tries to hide." And that day, I saw it clearly. Lucia's silence, the burned room's silence, Pedro's silence, all screaming the same thing. Something much bigger was happening. When the house finally emptied, I closed the door slowly, as if I needed to feel the weight of the silence before moving forward. I stayed there for a few moments in the hallway, listening to my own breathing, short, tense, uneven. The smell of the fire still clung to everything, as if trying to stay and remind me of what had been taken. I gripped the green necklace tightly. I felt the cold stone in my palm, and it pulled me back into the present. My grandmother used to say that when something is wrong, the body knows before the mind, and my body was screaming. I went back to the bedroom to look at everything with new eyes, not as a victim, but as someone who needed to understand. I knelt again, but this time not to mourn, to search. I pushed aside pieces of wood, blew away ashes, used my phone's flashlight to illuminate corners, and soon I noticed what the pain hadn't let me see before. The soot was concentrated in specific spots, as if the fire had started in more than one place inside the closet. An accidental fire doesn't behave like that. An accidental fire spreads, climbs, races upward. This one looked assembled, fed, directed. Off to the side, I found a small mark on the floor, a thin, circular scrape, like something heavy had been dragged across it. It was the mark of a metal can, a round can, like the ones used to store gasoline. My heart sped up immediately, and then, almost hidden beneath a scorched piece of the door, I saw something that wasn't mine, a silver keychain with the letter L engraved on it. I touched it with my fingertips and caught that same sweet perfume that always clung to Lucia's clothes, a scent that, in that moment, felt more like poison than fragrance. I held the keychain in my closed hand, like a secret piece of evidence. I walked to the kitchen, replaying every detail in my mind. Her cup was still in the sink, the red lipstick mark on the glass. The dish towel, which I always leave folded, was crumpled. The front door, slightly ajar. Everything arranged to look natural, and because of that, it wasn't. Then I remembered Pedro. The scared look, the soot on his hands, his tense body. He knew something. He had seen something. And for some reason, he was afraid to say it. I returned to the room one last time. I picked up the small, intact piece of floral fabric from the skirt I had worn at 50. It was tiny, the edges burned, but still mine. I tucked it beside the necklace. And at that moment, I made my decision. I would not be erased. I would not let anyone rewrite my story. I left the room stronger than I entered it, because when the fire takes everything, what remains is the truth it couldn't destroy. The next morning, I woke up with the feeling that the house had shrunk, as if the walls had moved closer during the night, squeezing my chest along with them. I made coffee slowly, trying to steady my breathing, but the smell of smoke still seemed to hide in the corners. I ran my fingers over the green necklace like someone searching for direction, and I remembered my grandmother's words. When you don't know where to go to someone who knows how to listen. That's why I grabbed my bag and decided to look for Alan Whitford, the attorney who handled my husband's paperwork when he got sick. Alan always had that calm way about him, the kind of man who observes before he speaks. I trusted him because he never treated me like someone fragile. He treated me like someone responsible. When I arrived at his office, he looked up over his glasses and, before I said a word, asked, "Marta, what happened?" I sat down slowly. I didn't trust my voice, so I handed him the burned piece of fabric I had kept in my pocket, the keychain with the letter L, and told him everything. The smell, Lucia's posture, Pedro's look, the directed fire. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. That kind of listening is rare. After a few seconds of silence, he took a deep breath. "You did the right thing coming to me. I don't want to accuse her without certainty," I muttered. "But something is wrong, Alan. Very wrong." He picked up the keychain, studied the metal, turned it between his fingers. "This is evidence, Marta. Maybe not conclusive, but it shows behavior. And behavior speaks louder than people think. For the first time since the fire, I felt seen. Truly seen. Someone understood what I saw and didn't think I was exaggerating." "What do I do now?" I asked. He leaned forward. "First, protection. You need to officially report the fire, but only as a fact. No accusations. Then, we revise your documents, especially the will. And..." He paused. "You need someone close by for a few days." I inhaled sharply. "You think she'll try something else?" "I don't think." he said, with careful sincerity. I fear. The necklace in my hand felt like it was pulling courage up from inside me. Alan, there's one more thing. I feel Pedro knows what happened, but he's scared. Alan's eyes softened. Then he's an important part of the truth, and he'll be protected too. That sentence broke something inside me, not in weakness, but in relief. Before I left, he rested his hand on the paper where he'd written everything down and said, Marta, remember, nothing can erase who you are. And now, you're not alone in this. I walked out of that office with my heart still tight, but supported. Not strong yet, but held. And in that moment, that was already a tremendous victory. I returned home with the feeling that the air was heavier, as if the walls themselves knew what was coming. I closed the door, tried to take a deep breath, but before I could even take my bag off my shoulder, I heard keys turning in the lock. Lucia walked in without knocking, as if she had that right, as if the house belonged to her. Her sweet, overpowering perfume flooded the hallway. My whole body went rigid. She found me standing there, holding the green necklace between my fingers. An automatic reflex, like the necklace was an invisible shield. Oh, you're here, she said, with that thin smile that never reached her eyes. We need to talk. Woman to woman. Woman to woman. As if that meant anything coming from her. I didn't respond. She stepped farther inside, walking toward the kitchen as if she were the host. I heard you went out early, she said, inspecting every corner of the house with that obsessive, evaluative glance. Is everything all right? You seem tired, confused. The word hit like a stone. Confused. Pure gaslighting. The attempt to make me doubt my own mind. And worse, to make me believe she was taking care of me. I'm perfectly clear, I replied, steady. Lucia tilted her head. Marta, I know you. You're shaken. It's normal. This age brings certain emotional fragilities. I swallowed hard. Heat rose to my face. The only thing that shook me was the fire, I said. But I'm handling it. Her smile cracked for half a second before she masked it again. You need to stop with this absurd idea that I had anything to do with it, she said, crossing her arms. Honestly, Marta, I'm starting to worry about you. She stepped closer, not to support, but to enclose. You've been forgetful, nervous, saying things that don't make sense. If you keep going like this, she paused, calculated, people might think you're not able to live alone. My heart pounded. There it was, the threat, clear, sharp, poisoned beneath sweet words. People, I repeated. Or you. Her mask cracked. I saw the spark of irritation. Watch what you say, she murmured. I only want what's best for you. I just don't want you to hurt yourself or do something without thinking. She stepped even closer. I stepped back. And I think it's best not to involve my son in this, she added. Pedro gets easily influenced. He says silly things when he's scared. I froze. Pedro. His name in her mouth sounded like a warning. He knows more than you think, I said softly, but firmly. Her eyes narrowed. Marta, she whispered, ice cold. Don't start a war you can't win. I gripped the necklace tightly, felt the stone heat in my palm. I'm not starting anything, I replied. But I am ending what you tried to erase. Her eyes widened, just a flash. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected me. Without another word, she grabbed her bag and walked to the door. But before leaving, she turned. You're going to regret going against me. I closed the door with a trembling hand. My whole body shook, but my spirit didn't. For the first time, I felt the fear shifting, leaving me and landing on her, and the war she promised. I wouldn't fight it alone. That night, the house felt like it was breathing differently. The shadows were longer, the floor colder, and every tiny sound put me on alert, as if I had forgotten what it was like to live without fear. I begged myself for calm, but calm didn't come. I put water on to boil, but it hadn't even begun to simmer, because before that, I heard footsteps on the porch. Light footsteps, uncertain. I touched the green necklace, the way I always did when my heart threatened to run out of my chest, and walked to the door. When I opened it, Pedro was there. Red-rimmed eyes, hands in his pockets, shoulders pulled inward. "Aunt, can I come in?" he asked with a trembling voice. I stepped aside immediately. He sat at the table with a restlessness no kind of longing could explain. It was fear, deep fear, the kind that grows in someone who has lived too long surrounded by forbidden truths. "My mom is acting weird," he said, staring at his own hand. "She didn't talk to me all day, just walked back and forth, and," he took a shaky breath, "she locked my bedroom door this afternoon, only opened it when I begged." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Pedro? Why?" I asked, keeping my voice as soft as I could. He swallowed hard. "She said I've been saying things I shouldn't. And, Aunt." She went through my backpack, like she was looking for something. My whole body tightened inside. "Looking for what?" I asked. He shook his head. "I don't know, but I think it's about the fire. She saw me looking through the window that day. I shouldn't have seen it, but I did, and she knows I did." He looked away, as if he feared his own confession becoming real. I placed my hand over his, feeling his trembling. "Pedro, what did you see?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. His silence lasted so long I could hear my own heartbeat. He took a deep breath, squeezed his hands, and finally spoke. "I saw my mom carrying your clothes to the backyard. I saw her throwing something on top of them. I saw her striking a match. I wanted to call you. But she pulled me by the arm and locked me in my room before I could say anything." His eyes filled with tears. "And I heard her practicing lines afterward. Sentences like, 'It was just an accident. The candle fell. She left it too close.'" My stomach twisted. It was the confirmation I hadn't wanted, but desperately needed. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, not judging, just hurting. Pedro squeezed his eyes shut. "Because she said, if I told, she would fix everything the right way." I didn't understand, but I was scared of what that meant. I gripped the green necklace so hard the stone pressed into my skin. "Pedro," I whispered, "you did the right thing coming here. You're not alone." "I promise." Before I could finish, we heard a car braking in the street. Pedro flinched. His fear was so strong I could feel it in the air. I peeked through the curtain. Lucia's car, engine running, headlights on. She didn't get out. She just stayed there, watching, monitoring. My chest froze. This wasn't just control. It was surveillance, a silent threat. Pedro stood up. "I don't want to go back," he whispered. And in that moment, I understood something that had been growing in the shadows, waiting to be named. This wasn't just about me. Not just about my clothes. Not just about my home. It was about Pedro. About control. About the narrative Lucia wanted to build and destroy. I looked at him, then at the car outside, and something lit inside me like a burning ember. I wasn't going to protect only myself. I was going to protect him too. And in that moment, the game changed. After Pedro left that night, taken discreetly by Ethan, who arrived quickly after I texted him, I was alone with the kind of silence that isn't empty. It was a full silence, dense, almost loud with the weight of things waiting to be discovered. I walked slowly down the hallway, the floor creaking under my feet as if the house itself were trying to warn me of something. I went to the destroyed bedroom and stood in the doorway for a few seconds. The smell of smoke was weaker now, but still present, clinging like a bad memory. I touched my green necklace, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. My husband used to say the necklace opened doors. Not literally, but in that poetic way he had of seeing life. And in that moment, I needed any courage his memory could give. I crossed the room and kneeled in front of the dresser, one of the few pieces of furniture that hadn't been completely burned. I opened the drawer where I kept my personal documents, but something was wrong, very wrong. The box where I stored my will, certificates, and important papers had been moved. Not messy, examined. The lid wasn't aligned, and the position was slightly off from how I always left it. My heart sped up. I set the box on the scorched bed. When I opened it, I gasped. The documents were organized too perfectly, like someone had gone through them and tried to put everything back better than I ever did. That wasn't my order, it was someone else's. And tucked between the papers, I found something that didn't belong there. An old letter, in my husband's handwriting. The world stopped. My hand shook as I opened the yellowed envelope. The letter was over 20 years old, written shortly before a work trip, the one where he almost didn't come back because of a highway accident. There were things he'd never told me, and now, in my hands, were thoughts he had saved in case something happened. He wrote about being worried about certain people in the family. He said he had noticed subtle attempts at influence, offhand comments about our belongings, and an uncomfortable insistence on matters that didn't concern anyone but us. He didn't name names, but his unease was clear. If someday you feel someone trying to corner you, love, review the will, see who truly deserves your care, and protect your peace. His words hit me like a silent blow. I kept searching the box and found something else, an envelope from the bank, sealed but wrinkled. I had never seen it. I opened it carefully. It was an alert about a blocked attempt to access my account. Someone had tried to get in using information similar to mine, but not fully correct. As if someone had tried to impersonate me. My vision darkened for a moment. Lucia. This wasn't just a fire, not just manipulation. It was a full offensive. I dug deeper and found, at the very bottom of the box, something that definitely hadn't been there before. A printed sheet with information about voluntary conservatorship, documents used to prove emotional or cognitive incapacity to manage one's own affairs. My entire body went cold. This wasn't random, it wasn't misplaced, it was planted, and not by me. The room spun for a moment. I closed my eyes, touched my necklace, and felt the metaphor become literal. Someone was trying to open doors inside my life, doors I had never given permission to open. When I finally caught my breath, clarity hit with painful sharpness. This wasn't just destruction, it was preparation. She wanted to weaken me, isolate me, discredit me, and eventually, replace me. When I looked again at my husband's letter, I felt a mix of grief and gratitude. He had tried to warn me, even without knowing what I would one day face. I closed the box slowly, and in that moment, something shifted inside me. The woman who came back from that trip fragile was gone. The woman who rose from that burned floor. That woman was ready to fight. After finding the tampered papers, my husband's letter, and the bank envelope, I stood in the middle of the destroyed bedroom like someone trying to breathe underwater. I knew I couldn't face this alone. Alan would handle the legal side, but I needed someone who understood technology, digital trails, hidden intentions behind access logs, someone who could see clues I didn't even know how to look for. That's when I remembered Ethan Rowe, my husband's friend, a digital security specialist. He had always treated me with respect back when he visited during the years my husband was alive. Never dismissed my questions. Always explained things clearly, patiently, humanely. I grabbed my phone before fear had time to stop me. Ethan, it's Marta. I need your help. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask for details. He simply said, I'm on my way. When he arrived, the smell of smoke hit him immediately at the door. He stopped, looked around, then looked at me with a mix of shock and indignation. Marta, what happened here? I showed him everything. The bedroom, the rummaged box, the envelope, the letter, the keychain with the letter L. He listened to every word with sharp, investigative focus. Then he opened his backpack, set his laptop on the kitchen table, and the glow of the screen highlighted the soot on my fingers. I felt embarrassed for a second, but he simply said, No one who's lived through this needs to apologize for their house. Let's begin. I touched the green necklace to steady my heartbeat. Ethan asked direct questions. Had I received strange messages? Did anyone else have access to my Wi-Fi? Did Lucia know my phone passcode? Had I noticed changes on my computer? I answered slowly while he typed quickly, checking logs, connections, timestamps. Then suddenly, he froze. Marta, he said, frowning. Someone logged into your Wi-Fi 3 times this past month. Always late at night. Always from the same IP. And trust me, this isn't random. It's someone with an intermediate level of digital skill. My heart raced. What does that mean? I asked, gripping the necklace like it could steady my pulse. It means someone was trying to infiltrate your digital life, he explained. Once inside the network, they can see connected devices, monitor traffic, attempt to access bank accounts. And look here. He tapped the wrinkled bank envelope. These dates match the attempted access almost exactly. My stomach twisted. Lucia wasn't tech-savvy, but she knew who to ask, who to use, who to manipulate. Ethan stood up, walked to the burned bedroom, and examined every inch like he was reading it. This wasn't accidental. Multiple points of ignition. Someone started this fire, Marta. Purposefully, intentionally, targeting personal belongings, not the entire house. I had to lean on the wall to stay standing. She wanted to destabilize me? I whispered. Ethan took a slow breath. She's trying to build a narrative that you can't manage your own life. Destroying your belongings, tampering with documents, trying to access your accounts. This is all meant to cast you as incompetent. It's serious, Marta. Very serious. Tears welled in my eyes, not from weakness, but from the sheer injustice. He stepped closer. You're not losing your mind. You're being targeted, and now you have evidence. I'm going to help compile everything. We're securing your home, passwords, devices. We'll document every attempt, but you will not face this alone. Then he said something that shook something deep inside me. Your husband believed deeply in your strength. I saw it, and he would say this himself. Nothing can erase who you are. My chest loosened. The necklace felt lighter, not just a memory, a source of strength. Ethan opened a new folder on the laptop and typed, Case Marta, Structured Evidence. And with that click, for the first time since the fire, I felt the tide turn. I had an ally, and with him, a real chance to reclaim the narrative. I was already prepared for Lucia's return. People like her don't accept losing ground. When they feel the narrative slipping through their fingers, they come back stronger, and with more silent violence. And I wasn't wrong. The next morning, while Ethan was reviewing files on his laptop, I heard the sharp sound of her car stopping in front of my house. The doors slammed. The air changed temperature. A chill ran across my skin. I held the green necklace, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Ethan looked up, noticed the tension, and said, Don't open the door alone. I'm here. But I knew I had to face her, not to provoke her, but to prove to myself that I was no longer the intimidated woman I had been before the fire. I opened the door before she could knock. Lucia stormed in like a controlled hurricane, her sweet perfume filling every corner, suffocating, almost aggressive. Marta, what do you think you're doing? She snapped, not even pausing to breathe. Going around telling stories? Have you completely lost your sense of reality? She stared at me as if expecting me to crumble on the spot, but I stayed firm. I'm not telling stories, I replied. I'm seeking help. Her mouth twisted into a sharp, dismissive smile. Help? Marta, please. You're the one who needs help. You're getting worse. Just yesterday, you were saying nonsense, nervous, disoriented. This was her tactic. Repeat until the absurd sounded believable. I'm perfectly aware of everything, I said. She laughed. Not naturally, but theatrically. Marta, honestly, I know you're struggling with age, with loss, with loneliness, and all this, she gestured around the house, is affecting you. My brother always told me you were too sensitive. My heart slammed in my chest. Dragging his name into this felt like a slap. Don't talk about him, I murmured. I talk about him because I knew him better than you think, she continued, stepping closer, eyes narrowing. And he told me many times that you needed someone to guide you, someone more stable. I breathed deeply. Ethan stood up behind me, silently alert. Lucia, stop, I said firmly. I will not stop, she exploded. You're destroying my family, talking to lawyers, outsiders, turning my son against me. You always wanted this, Marta. You always wanted to take what's mine." She stepped so close I could smell her perfume like poison. "I know what you're doing," she said softly. "You're trying to ruin me. And if you keep this up, I'll prove you're not capable of living alone." There it was, her true plan. Out loud. "You want to have me declared incapable," I said, staring at her. She paled. Just slightly, but enough. The fear of being exposed flickered in her eyes. "Don't say absurd things," she said, but her voice wavered. "I'm just trying to protect you from yourself." Ethan stepped forward. "I think you should leave," he said calmly. She ignored him entirely, keeping her eyes locked on mine. "Marta, do you really think anyone will believe you? A widow, fragile, with a house in this condition?" She pointed to the burned remains. "It practically screams negligence." Indignation burned through me, hotter than the fire itself. "Careful," I murmured. "You're crossing a line." She smiled. Cold. Empty. "I'll prove you need supervision," she said, legally. The silence that followed was so heavy the house itself seemed to tilt. Then she spun around and left, slamming the door so hard the sound echoed through the hallway. My body trembled, but my spirit did not. Ethan put a hand on my shoulder. "Marta, now it's clear. She's trying to silence you, but she won't succeed." I touched my necklace and breathed slowly, because in this second confrontation, I saw something new, something empowering. She was afraid, and when someone like her feels fear, it's because the truth is getting dangerously close. After Lucia's explosive exit, the house fell silent, the kind of silence that isn't peace, but preparation. I sat at the kitchen table, my heart still pounding. Ethan closed his laptop slowly, his expression tense in a way I'd never seen before. "Marta, the time has come," he said, placing his hands on the table. "She's crossed every line. Now we need to act before she tries anything legal." I held the green necklace, breathing deeply. "What do I do first?" "Not you," he corrected. "We do." Those 3 words felt like an invisible embrace. After so many days feeling isolated, someone finally said, "We." I almost cried. Ethan grabbed a pen and paper as if drafting a war map. "First, document everything. The fire, the digital intrusion, the tampered documents, the bank access attempt, everything with dates and times." I nodded. "Second, secure your home. I'm installing a protected router, changing passwords, encrypting your devices, and setting up cameras inside and outside. Nothing enters or leaves here without your knowledge." That level of care gave me a new kind of safety, as if someone was finally reinforcing every door Lucia had tried to break. "Third," he continued, "you need to go to the police department and file an incident report. No accusations, just facts. That creates a record, and whoever reports first," he met my eyes, "shows they're telling the truth." That sentence hit hard. "And what about Pedro?" I asked, the tightness rising in my throat. "Pedro is a key witness," Ethan said. "He saw it, he knows, and he needs protection. I've already spoken to Alan. He'll handle the legal part." Just then, we heard footsteps on the porch. My breath seized. It was only our neighbor, Mark, dropping off mail that had gone to his box by mistake. "Marta, I saw your sister-in-law here yesterday," he said. "She looked off. If you need someone to confirm you've been clear-headed and fine, I'm here." His simple validation warmed something inside me. Women over 50 know this moment well, when someone finally sees the injustice you've endured and believes you. When Mark left, Ethan gave a half smile. "See, that's social proof. People see who you really are." Then he reopened his laptop. "Fourth step, you need to record a statement. Not to post, just as evidence. If she tries to claim you're unfit, we'll have a clear, coherent record of your state of mind." My stomach flipped, but I knew it was necessary. I sat in front of the phone camera. Breathed, touched my necklace. "My name is Marta," I began, voice trembling, "and this is a record that I'm fully aware of my actions, my home, my life." And I continued, simple words, honest words. Words of a woman who had carried a lifetime and was still standing. When I finished, Ethan reviewed the video and said only, "Perfect. This protects you." Then Alan arrived. He brought documents, guidance, and a sentence that still echoes. "Marta, you're not fighting for possessions. You're fighting for your dignity. And dignity is non-negotiable." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "From here on, every move she makes will be documented. And every move we make will be strategic." We locked windows, checked doors, organized folders of evidence. The house finally felt like it was breathing with me, not against me. That night, before bed, I sat on the edge of the mattress, looking at the burn marks. They were still there, but they no longer hurt the same way. They were part of my story, not the end of it. I touched my necklace and whispered, "I didn't want a war, but I won't run from it." And for the first time, I felt armed, not with weapons, but with truth. And truth. Truth is the kind of fire no one can put out. The day of the hearing arrived the way storms do, without asking permission. I woke up before sunrise, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the marks still visible from the fire. They were there, but they no longer pierced through me. I touched the green necklace around my neck. The stone was cold in the early morning, yet it seemed to pulse with my heartbeat. I knew this day would be the final period at the end of a story someone tried to write for me, and that I was finally taking it back. Ethan came to pick me up. When I got into the car, he looked at me with a seriousness I wasn't used to seeing in him. "Ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "No, but I'm going anyway." He gave a brief smile. "That's what ready looks like, Marta." The courthouse felt larger than I remembered. Cold. Every footstep echoed. The marble walls reflected a harsh white light that made everything feel harder, sharper. But I walked with firm steps, even with my heart pounding louder than my shoes. Lucia was already there, sitting with perfect posture, expensive clothes, flawless makeup. When she saw me, she smiled slowly. A calculated smile, as if she still believed she had everything under control. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The thud of wood against wood reverberated like a warning. They opened the session with the case title, "Residential Fire Under Suspicious Circumstances." So many words, and all of them carrying the weight of what had been done to me. Alan leaned toward me and whispered, "Stay calm. We have far more than she expects." The first to speak was Lucia. She stood, adjusted her hair, and began her performance. "Your Honor, the fire was an unfortunate accident. My sister-in-law has been going through episodes of confusion. She's emotionally unstable, and I only tried to help her." She lifted her chin. "I'm practically the only family she has left. I'm concerned for her well-being." The judge watched her with raised eyebrows, but remained quiet. Lucia continued. "She's been saying things that don't make sense. Serious accusations without a shred of proof. I'm afraid she can't take proper care of herself." My stomach churned, but I stayed silent. Ethan touched my arm gently, a signal to wait. Then the judge turned to me. "Ms. Marta, would you like to respond?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, keeping my voice steady. I stood slowly. Every memory of my home seemed to echo in that courtroom. I know exactly who I am, and I know exactly what happened to me. I touched the green necklace. And I have evidence. Alan stepped forward. "Your Honor, I'd like to present the first exhibit." He placed photographs of the burned room on the table, highlighting the multiple ignition points. The expert had confirmed it. This fire was not accidental. The judge flipped through the photos. His expression hardened. Lucia shifted in her seat. Then Ethan was called as a technical witness. He explained the unauthorized entries into my Wi-Fi network, the digital intrusion attempts, the matching timestamps with the bank alert. He presented the professional report he had prepared. "Your Honor," Ethan said, "this wasn't just a breach of privacy. This was a structured attempt to create psychological and financial vulnerability." The judge nodded. "Impressive work, Mr. Rowe." Lucia moved again, this time less gracefully. Alan then placed the bank envelope on the table. "This attempt at fraud coincides exactly with the unauthorized digital access. Ms. Marta did not initiate any of these actions." The judge rubbed his chin, thoughtful. But what came next was the breaking point. Alan called Pedro to testify. Lucia's eyes flew open. Her fingers dug into the armrest, control slipping like sand through her hands. Pedro entered quietly, head lowered. He looked small, fragile, but also free in a way I hadn't seen before. When he spotted me, he found strength. I gave him a gentle smile. It was enough. "Pedro," the judge said, "tell the court what you saw." He swallowed hard, looked at his mother. She gave that subtle, quick gesture, the silent threat I knew too well. Then he looked at my necklace, an unexpected detail that broke me inside, as if he too sought courage from it. "I saw my mom," his voice cracked, "carrying Aunt Marta's clothes to the backyard. I saw her pour gasoline. I saw her strike a match. I wanted to warn her, but my mom grabbed my arm and locked me in my room before I could say anything." The courtroom went silent. So silent I could hear my own breath. "Continue," the judge said. "She practiced phrases afterward," Pedro said, tears welling. "It was an accident." The candle fell. "She left it too close," Lucia snapped. "Lies! He's just an impressionable boy. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's confused." "Silence," the judge ordered, slamming the gavel. Pedro began crying. I instinctively stepped toward him, and the judge allowed it. "You may approach," he said. I walked to Pedro, placed my hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "You did the right thing. You're safe now." He breathed deeply. The judge watched. Everyone watched. The judge then turned to Lucia. "Ms. Lucia, in light of the physical, digital, and testimonial evidence, and observing your behavior in this court, you are officially under investigation for intentional property destruction, fraud, psychological manipulation, and attempted unlawful incapacitation." Her face collapsed, the mask disintegrated. All her layers dissolved like wet ink. She turned to me, not with anger, with panic. "Marta, you can't do this to me." I breathed slowly and spoke words I had carried in silence for months. "You tried to burn my memories." I touched my necklace. "But I don't forget who I am." Then I finished. "No one erases what I am." The judge struck the gavel, and in that sharp final sound, my story began again. After the sound of the gavel echoed through the courtroom, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time, my chest breathing fully. It wasn't joy, it wasn't triumph, it was rest. A kind of rest that seemed to come from deep in my bones, as if my body had finally been given permission to stop fighting for a moment. Alan placed a hand on my shoulder as people began to leave the room. "Marta, the worst is over," he said quietly. I just nodded. My legs were steady, but my heart still needed time to understand it was safe again. I held the green necklace, feeling the stone warm under my fingers. That necklace had seen so much with me, and now it had crossed the storm all the way to the other side. Ethan came over with Pedro, walking beside the boy who looked smaller, more fragile, but also freer. "You were very brave," I told him. Pedro looked at me with wet eyes. "I just told the truth, Aunt Marta." "And sometimes," I replied, "the truth is the bravest thing a person can do." The judge was still talking with the officers when an agent walked up to me. "Ms. Marta, we need your signature on these documents," she said, handing me a folder. "They're for the protective order. You are now formally safeguarded. The respondent is prohibited from approaching your residence or attempting any direct contact, including digital." I signed without my hand shaking. Each letter felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Hours later, back at home, the silence was different. Light, clean, almost soft. I sat on the couch with the late afternoon light spilling through the window. Ethan was finishing the last security updates, while Alan reviewed some papers beside me. We weren't just three people sharing a room. We were a team that had walked through fire together. "Marta," Alan said, still reading, "her case is going to move quickly, and you'll be protected at every step." Ethan added, "The neighbors have already confirmed seeing suspicious behavior from her. That strengthens everything." A gentle warmth spread in my chest. For the first time, the world around me seemed to really see me. That evening, When Pedro came back with a social worker who would be evaluating his situation during the investigation, I saw in his eyes a mix of fear and relief. "I don't have to go back to her house, right?" he asked, voice almost a whisper. The social worker answered calmly, "Not now. You'll stay somewhere safe until the court decides what's best for you." Pedro looked at me like he was searching for solid ground, and I gave him a firm smile, even with my heart tight. When everyone left and I was alone in the living room, I touched my necklace for what felt like the 1,000th time that day. The stone seemed to pulse, as if my grandmother were saying, "You came back, Marta, whole." I looked around and realized that my house, even scarred by fire, was still my home. And finally, it was a safe place again. 3 months have passed since the day of the hearing, and the house finally smells like the person who lives in it again. In the mornings, I open the window and let the breeze come in slowly, carrying away whatever traces of smoke still cling to old memories. The marks from the fire are still here, in small corners only I notice, but they're no longer wounds. They're reminders that I survived. I rebuilt the bedroom little by little, without rushing. I chose a new lightwood wardrobe, but left an empty space inside it, on the right side. Not for the clothes I lost, but for what I still intend to build. There's a mature peace in that, understanding that not everything has to be replaced. Some things simply need to be honored. Pedro visits me every weekend. He's still in therapy, but his eyes are no longer those of a frightened boy. They're the eyes of someone who found truth, and when truth finds you, it changes everything. He hugs me tightly each time he arrives, as if he still needs reassurance that I'm here. And I am. Ethan remains a close friend, the kind who shows up when the world goes dark. Alan continues to oversee my case with the calm steadiness only ethical people carry. And Lucia, she's far away. The restraining order is still in place. The legal processes continue. But to me, she's no longer a threat. She is the past. And the past no longer governs me. Today, when I touch the green necklace, I feel something different. It used to be protection. Now it's gratitude. It's as if my grandmother is saying, "You didn't just endure, Marta. You were reborn." And if you're hearing my story right now, I hope you carry this with you. No one erases what you are. No one takes from you what was built with love, courage, and truth. If this story touched you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and which part spoke to your heart the most.